News spread faster than light in the galactic community. Within days, every major species had heard the story. A human had survived 3 weeks in the vacuum of space. A human had woken up on an alien examination table, missing an arm, and simply asked for it back. A human had refused to accept death, even when death was the only option. The Quiet Dawn changed course toward human space. Vox had received orders from Norrin Central Command. The human was to be returned to his people immediately, with full honors and an official apology for the dissection. The Norrin government did not want to start a war with a species that could survive the impossible. Tay spent the journey recovering. His body healed at a remarkable rate, the cuts and incisions closing within days. The reattachment of his arm was more complicated, requiring equipment the Quiet Dawn did not have. But Tay assured them that human doctors could complete the procedure once he returned home. "Does it hurt?" Tal asked one evening, looking at the sealed container where the arm waited. "No," Tay replied. "I cannot feel it at all right now. That is the strange part. I know it is my arm, but it feels like it belongs to someone else. Once it is reattached, the nerves will reconnect and the feeling will return. That part will hurt." Tal shook his head in amazement. "Your species is remarkable. We are just survivors," Tay said with a shrug. "Nothing special about that. Every species survives, or they die out. But not like this," Tal insisted. "Other species survive through speed, or strength, or intelligence. Humans survive through pure stubbornness. You refuse to accept limits. You refuse to believe in impossible." Tay thought about this for a moment. "Maybe that is true. We have a saying on Earth, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It means no matter how many times life knocks you down, you get back up one more time. Always one more time." Vox entered the room, carrying a datapad. She had been researching human history since Tay's awakening, learning everything she could about the species she had once dismissed as boring. "I have been reading about your wars," she said. "They are terrible. Humans have killed millions of their own kind." Tay nodded sadly. "Yes, that is our shame. Humans can be cruel to each other. We fight over land, resources, ideas. We hurt each other badly. And yet you survive," Vox observed. "Every war ends, and humans rebuild. You destroy your cities and construct new ones on the ruins. You lose half your population to disease and grow it back within generations. Your history is a cycle of destruction and recovery." "That is the human way," Tay agreed. "We break things, including ourselves. But we always fix them again." Vox sat down across from him. Her 4 eyes studied his face with new understanding. "I was wrong about your species," she admitted. "I called you boring, unimportant. I looked at humans and saw nothing special. No claws, no armor, no special abilities. Just soft flesh and fragile bones." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I did not see the fire inside. The will to survive that burns in every human heart. That is what makes your species dangerous. Not weapons or technology, but pure, unstoppable determination." Tay smiled at her. "Is that what makes us dangerous? Or what makes us friends worth having?" Vox considered this. "Perhaps both." The Quiet Dawn reached human space 3 weeks later. A human vessel came to meet them, a medical ship with doctors ready to receive Tay and reattach his arm. Vox watched from the observation window as the ships connected and Tay prepared to leave. "Thank you for returning me," he said to Vox and Tal as he stood at the airlock. "Thank you for not finishing the dissection. Thank you for being curious instead of afraid." Vox stepped forward. "I would like to continue studying your species," she said. "Properly this time, with living subjects who consent. There is so much we do not understand about humans. You would be welcome on Earth. Tay offered. We love meeting new species. We love learning about the galaxy. Come visit us, and we will show you what humans are really like when we are not being cut apart on examination tables. There was no anger in his voice, no resentment. He had been frozen, dissected, and treated like a specimen, and still he offered friendship. Vox realized something important in that moment. Humans did not just survive physical dangers. They survived emotional ones too. Hate, fear, anger. These feelings did not control them. They could let them go and move forward. Fall down 7 times. Stand up 8. Tay walked through the airlock and onto the human ship. The last thing Vox saw was his smile as the doors closed between them. Word continued to spread through the galaxy. The story of Tay became famous. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly knew everything about them. The boring little creatures from the unimportant planet called Earth were not boring at all. They were terrifying, not because they were strong, not because they were smart, not because they had weapons or armies or fleets. They were terrifying because they could not be stopped. They could not be killed permanently. They would always come back. No matter what the universe threw at them, humans would find a way to survive. Tay returned to Earth as a hero. His arm was successfully reattached. The nerves regrew over several months, and eventually he could move his fingers again. He gave interviews about his experience, telling the galaxy about his time on the Quiet Dawn. They are not enemies, he said about the Norans. They were curious. They made mistakes, but they corrected them. That is what good people do. We should reach out to them, learn from them, share knowledge with them. Vox watched these interviews from her ship, now assigned to study humans officially. She had become the galaxy's leading expert on the species. Other scientists came to her with questions, eager to understand the creatures that could survive death. What is their secret? They would ask, how do humans do it? Vox always gave the same answer. They do not know how to give up. They face impossible situations and find a way forward. They fall down again and again, but they always stand up. Their bodies are fragile. Their lives are short. Their history is filled with failure. But they never stop trying. She would pause then, looking out at the stars. That is what makes them survive. That is what makes them strong. And that is what makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Far away, on a blue planet called Earth, Tay lived his life. He went back to space eventually, exploring distant stars and meeting new species. His arm worked perfectly. His body healed completely. The only evidence of his adventure was a small scar on his shoulder. But he never forgot his time on the Quiet Dawn. Never forgot the aliens who cut him apart and put him back together. Never forgot the lesson he taught the galaxy without even trying. Humans survive. Always. No matter what. Tal returned with food and the preservation container holding Tay's arm. The human sat at a small table in the corner of the laboratory, eating slowly with his one remaining hand. Vox watched every bite, taking notes on her datapad. The food is acceptable? She asked. Tay nodded. It tastes strange, but my body can process it. Humans can eat almost anything organic. Our stomachs are very flexible. Another adaptation, Vox murmured, writing this down. The human had been eating for nearly an hour. Vox had never seen any creature consume so much food in one sitting. But Tay explained that his body needed energy to repair the damage. The 3 weeks of death sleep had drained everything. Now his cells were working hard to rebuild. Tell me more about your survival state, Vox requested. How does it work exactly? Tay set down his food and thought for a moment. Humans have 2 main systems that control our bodies, he began. One handles normal activities. Walking, talking, thinking. The other handles emergencies. When we face danger, this second system takes over. Our hearts beat faster. Our muscles become stronger. We stop feeling pain. This is called the fight or flight response. Vox nodded. Many species have similar responses. Yes, but humans have something extra, Tay continued. A third response. When fight and flight both fail, when death is certain, some humans can freeze. Our bodies shut down completely to protect the brain. Everything else becomes secondary. We enter a kind of suspended animation. But how? Vox pressed. The physical requirements alone are impossible. The water in your cells should have turned to ice. The vacuum should have destroyed your lungs. The radiation. I do not know the science, Tay admitted. I only know it happens. Not to every human. Not even to most. But to enough that we have stories about it. People who fell into frozen lakes and were pulled out hours later, still alive. Soldiers who were found on battlefields long after they should have died, still breathing. We call it the death sleep, and we do not fully understand it ourselves. Vox sat back, her mind working through the implications. If humans could truly survive vacuum exposure, even rarely, even imperfectly, that changed everything. Space was the deadliest environment in the universe. It killed instantly and absolutely. Except, apparently, for these strange creatures from Earth. Your home planet, Vox said. Tell me about it. Tay smiled, and there was warmth in his expression. Earth is beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, tall mountains. But it is also dangerous. Very dangerous. The weather changes constantly. Storms, floods, fires, freezing winters. The ground itself shakes and breaks. Volcanoes pour fire from the mountains. And that is just the planet. He took another bite of food before continuing. The animals are worse. Earth is creatures with teeth like knives, claws like blades, venom that kills in seconds. We have insects that spread disease, plants that produce poison, bacteria that eat living flesh. Everything on Earth is trying to kill everything else, all the time. Tal had been listening quietly, his 4 eyes wide. And humans survive in this environment? Not just survive, Tay said. We became the dominant species. We conquered the entire planet. Every ocean, every mountain, every desert and jungle and frozen wasteland. We built cities where nothing should live. We created medicines to fight the diseases. We made weapons to defeat the predators. He looked at his missing arm. Humans break easily, he admitted. We are soft and slow compared to many animals. A single bite from certain snakes can kill us. A bad fall can shatter our bones. We are fragile in so many ways. But we also heal. We adapt. We learn. And we absolutely refuse to accept death as final. Vox thought about her own people. The Norns had evolved on a peaceful world. Their greatest challenges had been intellectual, not physical. They had never needed to develop the kind of desperate survival instinct that humans possessed. Your species, she said slowly, is like a wound that will not close. You keep bleeding, keep hurting, but you never die. You just keep going. Tay laughed at that description. Yes, that is accurate. Humans are stubborn. We do not know when to quit. Some people think that is our weakness. We keep fighting even when we should surrender. But it is also our strength. We have survived things that should have destroyed us many times. Ice ages, plagues, wars that killed millions. Every time, we come back. Vox looked at the preservation container where Tay's arm floated in the clear liquid. You truly believe this can be reattached? If you have the right medical equipment, yes. Tay examined the container. The arm has been kept cold, which is good. The cells are still alive, like mine were. If we work quickly, the nerves can regrow, the blood vessels can reconnect, and the arm can become functional again. This should not be possible, Tal said, shaking his head. Many things about humans should not be possible, Tay replied with a smile. And yet, here I am. Vox made a decision. She stood up and walked to a communication panel on the wall. I am going to contact Non Central Command, she announced. They need to know about this. About you. Tay did not try to stop her. What will they do? I do not know, Vox admitted. But humanity is clearly not the boring, unimportant species our records suggest. Your people need to be studied properly, understood fully. If humans can survive things that kill every other species in the galaxy. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. If humans could survive the impossible, what else could they do? What other abilities were hiding inside those soft, fragile bodies? What would happen when humanity fully expanded into the galaxy, encountering species that saw them as weak and insignificant? Tay seemed to understand her thoughts. We are not a threat, he said gently. Humans do not want war. We want to explore, to learn, to make friends with other species. We came to space looking for peace. But if peace is not offered? Vox asked. Tay's expression changed. The warmth faded, replaced by something harder. Something ancient. Something that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. Then we survive, he said simply. Whatever it takes. However long it takes. Humans do not lose. We might fall, we might break, we might die 1,000 times. But in the end, we always get back up. Vox looked at the human sitting in her laboratory. Missing an arm, weak from starvation, surrounded by aliens who had been cutting him apart like a specimen, and he was not afraid. He was making plans. He was thinking about the future. For the first time in 200 years, Vox felt something she had never experienced before. She felt afraid of a species other than her own. Vox had lived for over 200 years. She had seen things that would drive lesser minds insane. She had faced dangers that would make warriors tremble. But nothing in her long life had prepared her for what happened next. The human's eyes were open. They were looking directly at her. Vox stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of instruments. The metal tools clattered loudly against the floor. Behind her, she heard Tal cry out in fear. The human did not move at first. His eyes simply watched, taking in his surroundings. They were brown, Vox noticed through her terror. Brown like the soil of her home planet, warm and deep and very, very alive. Then the creature sat up. The motion was slow, almost gentle. The human used his remaining arm to push himself into a sitting position on the metal table. His head turned, looking around the laboratory. He seemed confused but not afraid. When his gaze fell on the preservation container holding his severed arm, his expression changed. That is mine, he said. Vox screamed. She could not help it. Dead things did not speak. Dead things did not move. Dead things did not look at you with those warm brown eyes and make polite conversation about their removed body parts. The human turned to face her. He tilted his head slightly, studying her the same way she'd been studying him just moments before. You are afraid, he observed. His voice was calm, even friendly. I am sorry. I did not mean to scare you. My name is Kang Tay. Where am I? Vox could not answer. Her throat had closed. Her hearts were beating so fast she thought they might explode. This was not possible. This was not real. This was some kind of nightmare. Tal stepped forward, his scientific training overcoming his fear. You are on the research vessel Quiet Dawn, he said, his voice trembling. We found you floating in space near your destroyed ship. We thought you were dead. Tay looked down at his body. He saw the cuts Vox had made, the incisions in his chest, the empty space where his arm used to be. For a moment, his face showed pain. Then it passed, replaced by a tired acceptance. You were studying me, Tay said. It was not a question. Yes, Tal admitted. We are scientists. We study new species. You were a specimen, Tay finished. I understand. He swung his legs off the table and tried to stand. His body wobbled, weak from whatever process had kept him alive in the void of space. Vox watched as he steadied himself against the table, breathing slowly and deeply. I need that arm back, Tay said, pointing at the preservation container. If it has not been damaged too badly, my body can reattach it. Reattach? Vox finally found her voice. That is not possible. The arm has been severed. The nerves are cut. The blood vessels are closed. No species can simply put a limb back on. Tay looked at her with something like amusement in his brown eyes. Humans can, he said simply. It takes time. It takes medical help. But we can do it. Our bodies are very good at fixing themselves. Vox did not believe him. She could not believe him. Everything he was saying violated the laws of biology she had spent 2 centuries learning. You were dead, she insisted. No heartbeat. No breathing. Frozen in the vacuum of space. How can you be standing here talking to me? Tay was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be thinking about how to explain something very complicated to someone very confused. Humans have a survival mode, he finally said. When we face certain death, our bodies can shut down. Everything stops. Heart, lungs, brain activity. We become cold and still, like death, but not dead. It is very rare. Most humans do not know they can do it. But when there is no other choice, our bodies find a way. That is impossible, Vox repeated, though her certainty was fading. Your people, Tay said gently. How old is your civilization? Vox straightened proudly. The Norum people have existed for over 1 million years. We have explored the galaxy, discovered countless species, and advanced science beyond what most minds can comprehend. Tay nodded. Humans have existed for about 200,000 years. We have only been in space for a few hundred years. We are young. We are small. We are not as smart as your people, not as advanced, not as powerful. He paused, looking at his missing arm. But we survive, he continued. That is what humans do. We adapt. We endure. We refuse to die. Your people became perfect over 1 million years. My people are still learning. We have no choice but to be tough, because we are not good at anything else. Vox stared at him. In 2 centuries of research, she had never heard anything like this. Species evolved to be better, stronger, faster. They did not evolve to simply refuse death. Your ship, she said quietly. What happened to it? Tay's face grew sad. There was an accident. An explosion in the engine room. The ship broke apart. I was thrown into space before I could reach an escape pod. He touched his chest where Vox had cut into him. I remember the cold. I remember knowing I was going to die. And then, nothing, until I woke up here. How long? Tal asked. How long were you floating out there? I do not know, Tay admitted. What is the date? Tal told him. Tay's eyes widened. 3 weeks, he breathed. I was dead for 3 weeks. The laboratory fell silent. 3 weeks in the vacuum of space. No air, no heat, no protection except a failing suit and whatever impossible survival mechanism lived inside the human body. Vox felt her scientific mind slowly coming back to life. The fear was still there, but curiosity was stronger. This human, this young and boring and unimportant species, had done something no other creature in the galaxy could do. I must study you, she said. Not as a corpse, as a living subject. I must understand how this is possible. Tay smiled, though there was tiredness in his expression. I will answer your questions, he agreed. But first, I really need my arm back. And maybe some food. Being dead makes you very hungry. Vox almost laughed, almost. The situation was too strange for laughter, too impossible for humor. But something about this human made her want to try. Tall, she ordered, bring the arm. And find some food from the storage. Something this creature can eat. Tal hurried to obey. Vox stayed where she was, watching the human who had come back from death. He was weak, wounded, missing a limb, and alone on an alien ship surrounded by strangers who had just been cutting him apart. And yet he smiled. He made jokes. He asked for food. You are very calm, Vox observed. Most creatures would be panicking in your situation. Tay shrugged with his one remaining shoulder. Panic does not help, he said. I am alive. That is what matters. Everything else can be fixed. Vox nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand something about humans. Something important. Something that changed everything she thought she knew about survival. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced, but they absolutely refused to give up Dot, and that, perhaps, was more dangerous than any claw or weapon. The space vessel Quiet Dawn moved slowly through the dark emptiness between stars. It was a research ship, built for science and discovery. The crew had been traveling for 3 cycles, searching for new species to study. They had found nothing interesting until today. Vox stood at the observation window, her 4 eyes scanning the darkness ahead. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that glowed softly in the dim light of the ship. Her people, the Norans, were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest scientists. They had studied thousands of species, cataloged millions of planets, and written the most complete records of life in the universe. Commander Vox, a voice called from behind her. The scanners have found something. Vox turned to see her assistant, Tal, standing at a control panel. Tal was young, eager, and still learning. His skin was a darker shade of blue, and his 4 eyes blinked rapidly with excitement. What is it? Vox asked, walking toward him. A ship. Or what remains of one. Tal pointed at the screen. It appears to be destroyed, broken into many pieces. Vox leaned closer to look at the image. The scanner showed twisted metal and shattered glass floating in the void. Whatever ship this had been, it had met a violent end. Explosions, perhaps. Or maybe a collision with space debris. It was impossible to tell from this distance. Any life signs? Vox asked. None, Tal replied. But there is something else. He adjusted the scanner, zooming in on a specific area of the wreckage. A body, floating near the main section. Vox's eyes widened slightly. A body meant a species. A species meant study. And study meant knowledge. This was what they had been searching for. Can you identify the species? She asked. Tal worked the controls for a moment, then shook his head. The database has no match. This is something new. New. That word sent a thrill through Vox's body. In her 200 years of research, she had found only 3 new species. Most life in the galaxy was already known, already studied, already understood. Finding something new was rare. Finding something completely unknown was almost impossible. Bring us closer, Vox commanded. Prepare the collection team. The Quiet Dawn changed course, moving toward the wreckage. As they got closer, the body became clearer on the screen. It was humanoid in shape, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and 1 head. The skin appeared to be a pale pinkish color, though it was hard to tell through the frost that covered it. The creature wore some kind of suit, torn and damaged from whatever disaster had destroyed its ship. Strange, Tal muttered. The body structure is similar to many species, but the details are wrong. The proportions are unusual. Vox nodded. She had noticed the same thing. The creature was neither too tall nor too short, neither too thin nor too thick. It seemed almost perfectly balanced, as if designed for general use rather than specialized function. Most species evolved for specific environments. This one looked like it could survive anywhere. "Send out the collection pod," Vox ordered. "I want that specimen on my examination table within the hour." Tal hurried to carry out her command. A small pod launched from the quiet dawn, piloted by 2 crew members in protective suits. Vox watched on the screen as they approached the floating body. The creature was male, they reported. Young, perhaps in the middle of its lifespan, though without knowing the species, it was hard to be certain. The frost on its skin suggested it had been exposed to the vacuum of space for some time. Days, maybe weeks. No living thing could survive such exposure. The body was certainly dead. The collection team carefully placed the frozen corpse into a preservation container and brought it back to the ship. Vox met them at the loading bay, her scientific excitement barely contained. "Take it to the laboratory," she instructed. "Begin warming procedures. I want to examine it as soon as the tissue is soft enough to work with." The crew carried the container through the metal hallways of the quiet dawn. Other researchers stopped to look, whispering among themselves. Word spread quickly on a ship this size. Everyone wanted to see the mysterious creature from the destroyed vessel. Vox followed the container to her personal laboratory. It was a large room filled with equipment, scanning devices, and preservation tanks. Shelves along the walls held samples from dozens of species she had studied over the years. Soon, this new creature would join her collection. The warming process took several hours. Vox used the time to study the creature through the transparent container. She noted every detail. The strange flat face with only 2 eyes. The small ears on the sides of the head. The 5 fingers on each hand, an unusual number. Most species had 3 or 4. "Commander," Tal said, entering the laboratory. "The database search is complete. We found a partial match." "Partial?" Vox raised one of her eyebrows. "Yes, the species is called human. They come from a planet called Earth in a distant sector of the galaxy. But our records are incomplete. Very few researchers have studied them." "Why not?" Vox asked. That seemed strange. If humans were known, why had no one studied them properly? Tal checked his datapad. The notes say humans are considered unimportant. A young species, only recently achieving space travel. They have no special abilities, no unique biology. The early researchers called them boring. Vox looked back at the frozen body. Boring? This creature had traveled far from its home world. Its ship had been destroyed in the depths of space. And yet here it was, a mystery waiting to be solved. "Nothing is boring if you look closely enough," Vox said. "Prepare the examination tools. We begin work in the morning." Cal nodded and left to gather supplies. Vox stayed in the laboratory, watching the frost slowly melt from the human's face. In death, the creature looked peaceful, almost as if it were sleeping. "Who were you?" Vox whispered to the corpse. "What secrets do you hold?" The human, of course, did not answer. Dead things never did. But Vox was patient. She would find the answers herself, one cut at a time. She had no idea what was waiting for her. That night, Vox could barely sleep. Her mind kept returning to the human in her laboratory. She had studied countless dead specimens before. This should have been no different. But something about this creature bothered her. Something she could not name. When morning came, she rose early and walked to the laboratory. The container had finished the warming cycle. The human's body was no longer frozen, though it remained cold to preserve the tissue. Everything was ready. Vox put on her examination gloves and opened the container. The human lay on the metal table, still and silent. Its eyes were closed. Its chest did not move. "Let us begin," Vox said to herself. She reached for her cutting tool, ready to unlock the mysteries hidden inside this strange, boring, unimportant species. She had never been more wrong about anything in her long life. The laboratory was cold and quiet. Vox preferred it this way. Silence helped her think. Cold kept the specimens fresh. She stood over the human body, her 4 eyes examining every detail before she made her first cut. The human was a male, as the collection team had reported. He appeared to be young and healthy, or at least he had been before his death. His body was well built, with strong muscles under the pale skin. A small metal tag hung from a chain around his neck. Vox carefully removed it and studied the strange symbols carved into the surface. "Kang Tae," she read slowly, trying to pronounce the unfamiliar sounds. "Is this your name, creature?" She set the tag aside and continued her examination. The human's clothes had been removed by the preparation team, leaving only the bare body on the table. Vox noticed several scars on the skin, old wounds that had healed long ago. This creature had lived a difficult life, it seemed. It had been hurt many times, but it survived. "Interesting," Vox murmured. "Your kind does not heal perfectly. The scars remain. Yet you continued living despite the damage." She picked up a scanner and ran it over the body. The readings confused her at first. The human's internal structure was strange. Everything seemed to be made for multiple purposes. The muscles could do many different tasks. The bones were strong but flexible. The organs worked together in ways she had never seen before. "You are not specialized," Vox said, speaking to the corpse as if it could hear her. "Most species evolve for one environment. They become perfect for one task. But you are average at everything. Why would evolution create something so general?" The door opened behind her. Tal entered, carrying a tray of examination tools. "Good morning, Commander," he said. "I brought the equipment you requested." "Set it down there." Vox pointed to a nearby table. "And come look at this. The scanner results are unusual." Tal placed the tray down and walked over. He looked at the screen displaying the human's internal structure. His 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "I do not understand," he admitted. "This creature seems unfinished, like it never completed its evolution." "That is what I thought at first," Vox agreed. "But look closer. The heart can speed up or slow down depending on need. The lungs can process different levels of air. The body can gain muscle or lose it based on activity. This creature is not unfinished. It is adaptable." Tal considered this for a moment. "Adaptable," he repeated. "But what use is that? A specialist will always be better at their task than a generalist." "True," Vox nodded. "But a specialist cannot survive if conditions change. This human could potentially live in many different environments. Hot or cold, high gravity or low. It would never be the best at anything, but it could survive almost anywhere." She reached for a cutting tool and activated its glowing blade. The time for observation was over. Now came the real work. "I will begin with the left arm," Vox announced. "The muscle structure there looks particularly interesting. I want to see how the fibers connect." Tal prepared a preservation container for the removed limb. This was standard procedure. Any parts separated from the main body needed to be stored properly for a later study. Vox made her first cut just below the shoulder. The blade passed through skin and muscle easily. There was no blood, of course. The heart had stopped long ago, and the cold had thickened any fluids that remained. She worked carefully, separating flesh from bone with practiced skill. "The tissue is dense," she observed. "More than I expected." This creature was stronger than it appeared. She continued cutting, moving around the joint where arm met shoulder. The human's body was designed efficiently, she had to admit. everything connected in logical ways. Nothing was wasted. After an hour of careful work, Vox finally separated the arm completely from the body. She held it up, examining the severed limb in the laboratory light. "Remarkable," she said. "Look at the hand, Tal. 5 fingers, each capable of independent movement. The grip strength must have been significant." Tal took the arm and placed it in the preservation container. "Should I begin scanning it now?" "Yes, I want a complete analysis. Every muscle, every bone, every nerve." Vox wiped her tools clean and turned back to the main body. "I will continue working on the chest cavity. The heart and lungs deserve closer attention." She worked for several more hours, making careful cuts and taking detailed notes. The human body continued to surprise her. The heart was simple in design, but incredibly efficient. It could beat billions of times over a lifetime without failing. The lungs could extract air in conditions that would kill most species. "Commander," Tal called from his workstation. "I found something strange in the arm tissue." Vox looked up from her work. "What is it?" "The cells. They are not dead." Vox froze. That was impossible. The human had been floating in the vacuum of space for an unknown period of time. No cell could survive such exposure. The cold alone should have destroyed all biological functions. "Run the scan again," she ordered. "There must be an error." Tal repeated the scan. Then he did it a third time. Each result was the same. "The cells are dormant," he reported, his voice shaking slightly. "Not active, but not dead either. They are waiting." Vox left the main body and walked over to Tal's station. She looked at the data herself, her 4 eyes reading the numbers rapidly. Her scientific training told her this was wrong. Her experience told her this was impossible. And yet the evidence was right in front of her. "This cannot be," she whispered. "No known species can survive vacuum exposure." The water in the cells would freeze and expand, destroying everything from the inside. "Unless the water was removed first," Tal suggested quietly. Vox stared at him. Then she looked back at the human body on her examination table. Remove the water before freezing? That would require the body to somehow know danger was coming. It would need to shut down its own systems, protect its core organs, and enter a state of preservation that no species in the galaxy had ever achieved. "Impossible," Vox said again. But her voice was less certain now. She walked back to the table and looked down at the human's face. The eyes were still closed. The chest was still motionless. But suddenly, the corpse seemed different. Less like a dead thing. More like something sleeping. "We need to check the main body," Vox decided. "If the arm cells are dormant, perhaps—" She reached for her scanner and passed it over the human's chest. The reading took a moment to process. When the results appeared, Vox felt her blood turn cold. The heart was not beating. The lungs were not breathing. But deep inside the body, at the cellular level, something was happening. Tiny amounts of energy were being produced. Microscopic processes were occurring. The cells were not dead. They were waking up. "Tal," Vox said very slowly, "I think we should—" She never finished her sentence. The human's eyes snapped open.